So this was the only thing I could really vlog about today, I think. Um, I know that in the coming weeks, there's probably going to be hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of videos, basically just like this. Um, but I feel it's worth adding my 2 cents into the mix. Uh, because I feel like this is one of the artists of our time, and there are just an infinite number of stories that people will be able to tell about their time with the work of Akira Toriyama. Um, and I think that's amazing. The outpouring that I have seen uh, since Thursday evening has been staggering, and rightfully so, as you sort of realize the depths of this man's influence. It's crazy. It's made me believe that I think we have witnessed the passing of one of the great literary minds of our time. And that sounds like hyperbole for what? Dragon Ball Z, a show where they scream at each other. But, I've been thinking about that a lot. And I wanted to maybe make my vlog about it a little bit less, maybe a little bit less about some of my personal experiences, although I will talk about them, and a little bit less typical. And I wanted to talk about, like, why Dragon Ball Z? What's up with it? It's kind of a weird thing, right? So I'll be talking about a little bit of everything. If for whatever reason this video gets picked up by the YouTube algorithm and is like, let's just schlep this in with all the rest of them while people are binge watching, hello, I am Funk. And what's up with this vlog is that this is the only visual you get, so you can put the background on something. You don't have to watch me, really. There's not really a visual aspect to my vlog, so don't worry about that. Just listen in. I'm super scatterbrained, so if you like stream of consciousness stuff, maybe this is your thing. If you like organized things, this is not your thing, because I don't really do that. But every now and then I get a good thought in there, and that's how we're working it. I didn't write a script or an outline for this video. I should have. I'll regret it in about 18 minutes. But we're just going to try to go off the cuff here, because I've done that in the last couple of days, and I feel like I've still come up with interesting things to say. So here we go. Akira Toriyama. Man. He's just the biggest name in, I don't think that there's anybody, who, when you think of an influential anime author, a mangaka, there's just no other name. There's just no other name you can come up with other than Akira Toriyama. I feel like he really is sort of like the George Lucas, the Steven Spielberg of manga and anime. He wasn't the first, certainly not, but he was incredibly influential. I mean, the impact of Dragon Ball Z is just massive. I mean, it's weird to say that, like, so many of the shows, a majority, if not all of the anime and manga that we enjoy today, have taken influence from Dragon Ball in some way. Like, it's weird that that's not hyperbole, because we can't say that about basically any other medium, but with anime we can, because that's the truth of it. Like, everybody took something from Dragon Ball Z, and it really defined a genre. I mean, obviously, I think if you're doing, like, shoujo anime, I think maybe there's not so much from Dragon Ball Z, but even then, like, women looked at Vegeta and said, I can fix him. So maybe there is something to that, but no, it's really incredible that you can look at something and say that, because it's not often that there's something that objectively true. I mean, the rise of anime itself is a pretty wild phenomenon, because it's not even really its own medium. It is still essentially just comic drawing and animation, but Japanese. Like, and yet it, for whatever reason, has risen above those art forms from all other countries to become its own classification of things. And, you know, again, that's not because of Akira Toriyama, but it's because of Akira Toriyama that all of that stuff is known in the Western world. I mean, it's such a weird thing to think about just how successful this franchise is. I mean, consider for a moment that you're Akira Toriyama, right? And you write, you've already written Dr. Slump. You've already really, like, contributed your holy contributions to the world, right? And then you write Dragon Ball. And Dragon Ball becomes this huge hit. And it becomes this massive hit. And it goes on for like 300 chapters, right? And it gets the anime adaptation. It's almost 300 episodes long and is a huge thing. And, man, it really makes for, like, the biggest early 90s you could possibly have for basically any creator ever. Maybe outside of, like, Kurt Cobain or something. But, like, man, you have all this success in Japan, and you think, all right, cool. You know what? My home country loves me. I'm a huge influence here. I'm a big name. I'm famous. I have all the fortune. I've made a very, very successful work. And I mean, at this point, like, Toriyama also had Dragon Quest as a credit. Like, it's a little wild to think about, like, all that stuff, because, like, we often undersell how big Dragon Quest was. Obviously, Toriyama was only a part of that, but a big part, because that's what we see when we look at Dragon Quest. But anyways, yeah, I mean, imagine that. And then, almost 10 years later, your thing that you wrote 10 years ago has a second windfall. It does this thing that no other anime before it has done. Not the people that influenced you. Not Fist of the North Star, which was the standard before Dragon Ball. Not, not Berserk. I mean, Berserk was influential, but, like, Dragon Ball Z in America, and as we would come to find out, the rest of the world, became this phenomenon. Like, imagine it's the early 2000s, and then all of a sudden all this brand new Dragon Ball Z money comes rolling in from this, this manga you wrote like 10 years ago now, and it's like, what the hell? Like, at that point you just go, what the hell? Like, I can't imagine. I can't imagine, writing this series that breaks new ground like that and makes anime popular overseas, like introducing people to an entire genre of things. Like, that's where it started, right? I mean, there were some other shows that debuted on Toonami around the same time, Sailor Moon and all that stuff, but, like, Dragon Ball Z was the big one. I mean, it was just wild how it took off, right? It was just like the perfect thing for boys at the time, I guess, and some girls liked it too, why not? But, like, it's a little hard to describe the rush that happened in the beginning with Dragon Ball Z. I don't even remember, like, what got me into it. I think my friend liked it, and that was the thing. I can oddly enough remember the first time I ever saw Dragon Ball Z on the television. Because I was, like, watching. I guess I turned the TV on one day after school, and there was this weird looking cartoon on, and it was, like, very intensely drawn. This one big dude was really beat up or something. He was just, like, in his underwear, which was hilarious. I didn't really know cartoons could be serious at the time, because, like, they weren't. Like, we had Dexter's Lab and, Johnny Bravo, the Powerpuff Girls, and Looney Tunes prior to that, and all. I could go on for days naming all the different cartoons we had, but this one looked so different. It was really weird, and I thought it was really weird looking, because, like, I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, this is weird. And there's this, like, kid flying and screaming, and I'm like, what the hell? And there were a bunch of people saying Gohan, and I was like, oh, that's funny. His name's Han. They're, like, named after Star Wars. This isn't Star Wars. What is it, Young Han Solo Chronicles? When could Han Solo fly? Could you imagine, like, thinking this tiny little fucking Mo Howard or whatever the fuck the bowl cut guy's name is? Like, could you imagine? Like it was so weird. I thought they were saying Gohan, and yeah, it was the episode where Gohan goes into berserk mode against Nappa. And it was the ocean dub, so like the music was all like, like that's what the music sounded like. That's what it 100% accurate. And then I kind of forgot about it. I think maybe I caught it a couple more times. And I think eventually my friend Jordan at the time started liking Dragon Ball Z and was like, this is a super cool show. It's a cool thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll watch it. And I did watch it, and I ended up really liking it and wanting to catch it. So the other thing about Dragon Ball Z that I think modern audiences don't realize is that this show was a bitch to watch as a kid. We're in a different kind of section now. We're not really talking about. We're talking about like a little bit of my personal experience now. We'll get back to the influence in a minute. But like Dragon Ball Z was originally a bitch to watch, like the biggest bitch to watch. It was so hard to actually be able to like follow the show because it came on 5 days a week, and it came on like right after school. So like if you went out to eat for dinner, you missed Dragon Ball Z, and if you missed an episode of Dragon Ball Z, it might not be on until they do reruns. You're gonna have no idea when the reruns happen because you don't know. You're a stupid kid. You don't know if the TV guide has it, right? Like, you don't know when you don't know how many episodes they're gonna syndicate. They would often stop like in the middle of sagas in order to, because they had to make time before the next episodes are dubbed. They would often stop just like mid saga, and then like you would tune in the next day and you'd be back at the beginning, and you're like, okay, well that sucks. And sometimes they'd make it all the way to the end of that stretch of episodes and go back again. And you were like, oh my God, what is this? Like, does the story continue? Like, are we done or whatever? So it was it was a very frustrating time because like you did anything, grandma's coming over, you have too much homework, you got in trouble, the day is very nice and you just want to go outside and play, like, you missed it. And it was very difficult to see the entire series. The only other thing we had, and shit, I should have got them out of my closet because I still have them. The only other thing we had were VHSs, right? Like, and they were these rectangle sort of things for the younger of you. Some of you don't remember. And they were good because you could own a little piece of Dragon Ball Z in your house, but it was only 3 episodes at a time out of like 200 some. And VHSs were about $9.99 a pop. So it was pretty expensive to try and collect all of them. And they were kind of hard to find because ain't no place keeping all them VHSs in stock. No. So, yeah, it was pretty much a miss trying to watch Dragon Ball Z as a kid. So all of you kids with the streaming and the Crunchyroll and the Funimation Now and whatever, y'all had it pretty good. Not gonna lie. I still to this day have not seen Dragon Ball Z all the way through, technically. In terms of, I've never read all of the manga, and I've never read all of I've never read all of the anime either, because you can't read anime. So I definitely haven't done that, but I haven't watched all of it either, because it's so long, and also I was just never on enough as a kid. I think that's one of the reasons why I ultimately loved Fully Cooley, because I was like, oh, I've seen the whole series now. That feels nice. It's one of the reasons why I think the Dragon Ball movies were such a big hit in the US too. Because you could own a small Dragon Ball story front to back, which you could not do otherwise. Because you were always owning these VHS tapes that were like, 3 episodes at a time in the middle of a saga, and they never really concluded because they just can't. You just can't do that in 3 episodes. It's a little, little dicey trying to see all of it, but it still became this huge hit. People loved it, very quickly spawned video games and t-shirts. The Dragon Ball Z t-shirts that came out at the time, And I wish I could do a whole vlog on this. And I would like to do some research and see if I can maybe find them. But look, let me tell you something. There will never be merchandise, T-shirts that were more lit, that were more raw and just straight up fucking awesome than the Dragon Ball Z T-shirts of the early 2000s. Those T-shirts were so fucking lit, man. I'll tell you what. I owned like 4 or 5 of them. And just some of the T-shirts that came out were just so cool. I had a fucking cool ass long sleeve shirt of like Goku, Gohan, and Goten doing the Family Kamehameha from the second Broly movie. That was an awesome ass shirt. I'm sad I got much larger and grew out of it because it was awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, just like the T-shirts, the action figures, I still have those. I remember the shift from Irwin toys to Jakks Pacific. I didn't like them at the time because the Irwin toys were solid colors and the Jakks Pacific had this like weird, like almost more of a gritty color scheme, and I thought it looked dumb, but I kind of feel a little bit differently now. But like, yeah, I don't know. It was so wild. Like I remember the first time Burger King had Dragon Ball Z toys, and it was early. It was like early, like Frieza Saga, right? Like we're still in Ocean Dub kind of early. And I remember those toys were like, looking back, those toys were like some of the coolest fucking fast food toys I had ever seen. So they were these like, I probably have these too in my closet. I don't know why I didn't dig them out, but they were these like little figures, right? They couldn't move them very much. They were more like statues, I guess. They were like silver. I think the Super Saiyan Goku one was gold. But like they were these silver figures, right? And like not only did you get like a cool little silver figure, there was like a stand that they went on, like a colored stand, that said their name. And there were these little pegs, and you could put them on the stand, and there was a button actually on the stand that made this Z light up under them, it was cool. It was like you could have just given me the figure and I would have been fine, but there was a stand. It got better, right? Like that wasn't the only thing. On the back of the stand, there was this little I want to say stand. There was this little stand on the back of the stand, right? This is like a really complicated JoJo episode. That was this like it had a Dragon Ball on it, and I think there were 7 toys, so there were 7 different like stand backs. And that stand was for putting the Dragon Ball Z trading card that you got with your Burger King toy in there, so you had like the statue and their name and the light up Z and the Dragon Ball Z card with that character on it. Like, damn. There was so much going on. It was like the best toys ever. I think, what did I have? I had Piccolo, Vegeta, and Gohan. I think those were the 3 that I had from that. And I remember that because I just remember those things so well. I remember Piccolo was really weird because he had his like turban on, but not his cape shoulder pad thingy. So like that was kind of a weird thing. And I remember the Vegeta card that was in that too. It was like Vegeta's it was like Vegeta's anger or Vegeta's desperation or something, or I don't remember what it was. And I remember the quote on the bottom was "Earthlings, sly dogs." Or at least that's how I interpreted it. I don't think that's how he says it I don't think that's probably how he said it in the anime, but that's what it was. We're just going through some nostalgia here because look, Dragon Ball Z is a lot of nostalgia, and honestly, I was very, very into it. I got out of it around the time I transitioned from elementary to middle school. I found out that kids in middle school, for whatever reason, didn't like anime. So I was like, all right, this isn't cool. I can't do this anymore. It was also the fact that like Toonami switched from like all week to Saturday somewhere in the Buu Saga. So it was like depressing when they did that because it was only on Saturday and I had to make a conscious effort to like go in and watch it on Saturday. It was just too much. And if you missed it then, it was a real problem, So I got out like late Buu Saga, early GT. Certainly I had at that point gotten most of the plot through the games. Like Boo's Fury, I think, may have been the first time I actually saw like the ending of the Buu Saga. And of course, in Budokai 2 was a very similar sort of thing. I don't know how I saw it because we didn't have the internet back then. It's not like we could just go on and watch different parts of the things or watch, clips from Dragon Ball Z or whatever. You could get some really, really clammy looking gifs in there. I will say though, one of the cool things about Dragon Ball Z, like peaking in popularity over here when the internet was a first thing, was like the sprites. Because you would go on to all these different websites and they'd have all these rad looking like SNES sprites. I think it was from like Hyperdimension or something, and like all these characters you didn't know yet, and like Goku with really long hair, and there was just like, man, I had that Beckett DBZ collector, and there was fan art, and like you always saw like these really cool looking fan arts, and you're like, that's rad. I remember Super Saiyan 4 Pan with boobs and being like, what's up with this? At least I think it was Pan. It might have been Videl, actually. You couldn't tell Super Saiyan 4, but like, I don't know. It's like, it's really hard to describe like the DBZ mania that took over when Dragon Ball Z really hit in the US. And then of course that brought over Shonen Jump, and that brought over all these other anime that like happened in rapid fire on Toonami, Outlaw Star and Gundam Wing and Blue Sub 6. Yu Yu Hakusho debuted on Adult Swim and eventually came down to the Sailor Moon and Card Captors and what else was even on Toonami? I don't remember. I mean, of course, Toonami even had stuff like Voltron, like earlier anime like Voltron and shit, like early on. But yeah, Dragon Ball Z was the big hit there. And I think it stands as a testament to how good Dragon Ball Z is that some of its predecessors like were rolling out around the same time. Like I consider Yu Yu Hakusho kind of a more down to earth and restrained version of Dragon Ball Z, and I think in a lot of ways it does what Dragon Ball Z was trying to do like a bit better than Dragon Ball Z in some areas. But it still takes like a ton of influence it because like Hiei's just fucking Vegeta. That's just where we're at with this. But yeah, it's like, I think it stands as a testament to how solid Dragon Ball Z is that it came out on top, and it was the biggest one. It was the one to really cause a sensation. You didn't really see as big a splash. Like all the other anime, like you could get Yu Yu Hakusho figures, you could get Yu Yu Hakusho video games, there was a card game. They like tried to make it Dragon Ball Z, but it just wasn't. You know what I mean? It was popular, but it just wasn't. But I think it stands as a testament to Dragon Ball Z. And going back to the near Shakespearean level of influence that I think Dragon Ball Z will have, and the legacy that Toriyama will leave, I mean, I think Dragon Ball Z was not just an intro to anime. I think it was an intro to storytelling for an entire generation of kids. Because there are so many elements of Dragon Ball Z that break things down to their basest of tropes in a way that still works, that I think prepared kids for higher level storytelling going forward. And I think nowhere is this more apparent than in looking at the popularity of Vegeta. Vegeta has one of the most recognizable arcs in anything ever. It introduced the concept of redemption arcs. It introduced the concept of turning villains into friends on a long enough timeline. Just the effect of long-term storytelling in Dragon Ball Z is like a wild thing. I think Eyepatch Wolf talked about this in his Impact to Dragon Ball Z videos, that like the fact that there is a continuous thing was huge, right? Like the fact that it wasn't just a monster of the week sort of thing like Power Rangers was, right? Like the fact that there was a story to follow. There was a reason to tune in day to day to Cartoon Network to watch the newest episode of Dragon Ball Z, or to try and get that piece of the story that you missed last time, because Lord knows Grandma needed visiting, so she ain't gonna watch spiky-haired dudes screaming at each other. She loves you a lot, but not that much. So yeah, no, I think it's just looking at the feeling of long-term storytelling in Dragon Ball. Introduced a lot of kids to that concept. That there was this sort of thing that pandered to them, that was their speed, that was their style, that was their age group, broken down into these solid tropes that they could follow, you know? I mean, it's really just like a fighting soap opera for boys, right? when you break it down, it's just like, yeah, it's a soap opera, but instead of cheating on each other and getting each other pregnant, they that comes later. The internet's too young for that, kind of, sort of. Although, no, you know what? Never mind. We're not going to talk about that. Should we? No, let's not. Maybe we will at some point. Look, the internet was so like, we're going to talk about it, I guess. The internet was so fucking young that you would go into the computer lab and, like, search for Dragon Ball characters, right? And porn would come up with them. I remember distinctly seeing, like, a picture of, like, naked Videl and Android 18 together on a school computer. Just because, like, when you Googled Videl, that's one of the things that came up, because Google was not, there was no safe search back then, folks. So, yeah, that was an interesting time. That was an experience exclusive to the very, very early 2000s. Like, very, like, I think a lot of people who are exactly my age will know what I'm talking about, but, like, everybody else is like, nah, they got on that shit real quick, I guess. But yeah, damn, what was I talking about before this? You just get distracted by that, and then it's like, all right, there's no coming back from this. Character arcs. No, I think one of the great things that Dragon Ball Z did was it just, like, it broke characters down into their tropes. It, like, I think one of the reasons it was so popular with you know, I think minorities in the U.S. and some of Latin America was just like the arc that Goku fought a space fascist, right? He fought this evil overlord who, like, purposefully enslaved his race. Like, you know, the Saiyans weren't even particularly great, and Goku didn't even really particularly care about his lineage as a Saiyan because he grew up as a human, and really all the Saiyans had done to them at this point was try to murder him and his family. Like, I think it's a bit misinterpreted that Goku was, like, fighting his oppressor or whatever, but, like, a lot of people saw it as that, and a lot of people saw that as very empowering, right? Like, you can stand up to these impossible odds and come out on top if you have enough power, if you have enough conviction, if you know, channel your emotions, you know, like, then you have that kind of power. And that was real inspiring to a lot of people. I think one of the big appeals of Dragon Ball Z was the pure catharsis of being a pubescent boy in this time period. You know, because, like, as a boy, you're way more connected to, like, your strongest emotions are, like, fucking rage, right? Because, like, I'm supposed to have it all and I don't. And it's like, that feeling is so palpable in Dragon Ball Z, and it just comes out when these dudes are just fucking screaming at the top of their lungs. It's like, people look at that and find it ridiculous. But when you're a 10-year-old boy watching that, it means something to you because, like, sometimes, like, when you're transitioning from a kid who is just fucking primal and just screams to get what they want, it's like sometimes to transition out of that into a kid that behaves and doesn't and is, like, self-conscious through the many times your mother told you, no, please don't do that anymore. Like, you know, when you're 10 and you're watching Dragon Ball Z and he's, like, screaming and getting shit done, it's like, you know what? I used to scream and get shit done, so this is kind of relatable to me. Like, that's just the pure essence of being a kid. And I think that, like, especially with boys who, for whom those emotions only ramp up when they get to, like, the pubescent age, like, I think it really meant something to us that these dudes kind of screamed at each other, and that's just how the plot worked. So, I really think that it was, like, pure catharsis, you know, for boys, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was so popular with them. Because, like, dude, how cool would it be to just scream and be able to, like, blow up a mountain? Look, dude, that show got me to fucking work out, man. I turned all the lights on in my room. I did push-ups. I was like, I'm going to train. I'm going to get my power level up. One day I'm going to attain Super Saiyan. And the fucking crazy thing is that I am one of fucking millions who did that, because like there's so many stories about that. There's so many tweets where like everybody tried to go Super Saiyan as a kid. Everybody tried to do Kamehameha. Look, I tried it. I tried it so many times. Every time I did like a couple push-ups, I tried again. I was like, maybe I'll be strong enough this time. Maybe I'll just get a little light. Because that was always like the schoolyard rumor. It was like, hey, yeah, I was doing my Kamehameha in the mirror last night and I actually saw a little bit of light. And I'm like, no way. And I'm like, fuck, I got to go home. And like, I didn't say fuck. I was too young and pure. I saw it written on the bathroom wall once and I was like, oh, what does that say? Fook? Oh, that's really weird. And that's like weird that I said that because I could read. Anyways, I was like, dude, I gotta go home and do some more push-ups and I will see a light because I am not worse than that guy, because I had a fucking complex when I was a kid. I was like better than everybody else. So I was like, I am not gonna be behind. I am definitely gonna try to do my Kamehameha. I'm gonna see the light. And I'm gonna fucking do it. It's gonna be me. I'm gonna be the first one to actually do it. So, whatever. But I like did push-ups and sit-ups and like worked out when I was a kid because Dragon Ball Z. I wish that I would do that now, but the world is a much darker place, and I don't believe that I will ever see the light trying to do a Kamehameha unless there's like some cool VR that happens someday. Which I'm sure already exists actually, but whatever. No, just like the influence of this, like the fact that like I've had all these goofy experiences, was just like, man, you know, it was just like everybody had those experiences. There's this shared like thing that all the 90s kids have, or most of us 90s boys have, you know, and it's just like, it's incredible. It's incredible to see all those tweets and see that, like, there's something about Dragon Ball Z that makes us want to do that, and that makes it memorable to us, and that makes it, those memories, so fun. I mean, look, fucking Dragon Ball Z survived its prequel era, right? Like, GT is commonly agreed upon as being pretty bad, and we still love Dragon Ball. Super is pretty much described as being pretty damn mediocre, and we still love it, right? It's just... like we still have these things. I honestly, like, I was gonna try to put some of my Dragon Ball merch like in the back here in the background or whatever. I don't have a ton of it now. I still have a stack of Shonen Jumps. I think literally the only thing, one of the, I mean, I have all my figures and stuff, but I only ever had like the little 5-inch ones. I have a Piccolo bobblehead over there and an Android 17 pin. Most of my other stuff that I have is just cauliflower, because I love cauliflower. She's not like 100% Toriyama, so I didn't do that. But yeah, I mean, just like the impact is felt in us all, right? I think we all have a shared love of Dragon Ball Z, even if we had to repress it going into middle school, because middle school kids are dicks with no taste. Look, being a dick is bad enough, but being a dick with no taste, awful. You know, but yeah, I mean, that's just talking about like Dragon Ball Z as a matter of enjoyment. So look, we're at a half hour right now. I'm gonna try not to, but I feel like I could go on for 2 hours about Dragon Ball Z. All the memories I have. My fucking neighbor spending his lunch money when we went to the mall on a Goku figure, the same Goku figure that I had. You know, just playing Dragon Ball Z at recess every day, every single day. We had our own saga going on. To the time in college, I realized that there were Dragon Ball Z clips on YouTube and I could rewatch my fights. And there was this moment when I was watching, I think it was like Goku versus Majin Vegeta or something. And I was watching it and I'm like, this still entertains me. And I still like this. And I'm not going to deny it anymore. Like, it was such a moment where I was like, huh, yeah, the world's shit. Dragon Ball Z still slaps. You know, but Dragon Ball Z is amazing. It like, I really do think like, okay, yes, there are other animes that have done shonen and the concept and character development and down to earthness and power scaling, and so many things have taken the concept of Dragon Ball Z and done it better, but also they haven't, because like, I just think that Dragon Ball Z is just so solid. Like you know, all the different archetypes that the characters have been massively influential on manga. I mean, if you are a nerdy kid, there's Gohan. If you're just like a dude that's just trying to get by, there's Krillin. You know, if you're like a fucking tryhard, there's Vegeta. If you're trying to do the right thing so hard that you like travel through time, there's Future Trunks. And like if you're just like a pure hero boy who likes to eat meat, you're Goku. Like I don't know. I just they're just the most solid of character arcs, of character archetypes in Dragon Ball Z that were then echoed throughout like all of shonen anime. Because like every you know. Every anime has to have their version of Vegeta or you know whatever character. I mean, I saw a tweet that was like I really like that said that you know they thought that Goku was gonna go down in the same category of fame as like Dracula and Sherlock Holmes, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty true. That's pretty true. He will. Goku is the quintessential shonen protagonist, right? And that's amazing for it. I think you could even make an argument for Vegeta being almost a better character and a more important character to the development of the genre and across basically fucking everything ever, right? Like that's how it goes, you know. It's just yeah, it's really hard to imagine it, you know. I think there's a reason it was so huge, and I think there's a reason it you know, it was even bigger than all the other ones, you know, all of its contemporaries and all of its contemporaries in the US. So, and that, of course, is to say nothing that the influence of Toriyama the man had. Just thinking about all of the art that got drawn and all of the you know, all of the manga artists that got started because of Toriyama. Seeing the statements from Masashi Kishimoto and Eiichiro Oda and, you know, Toyotaro and just everybody that, you know, they wouldn't have started without Toriyama sensei. I don't think heard noise. Like a squirrel or something? Welcome to my vlogs, people. I don't think, especially while I'm saying something profound, of course. I don't think I've ever really heard of a creator who was beloved by so many other multi-million franchise, you know, artists as Akira Toriyama. It seemed like he was such a class act. You never really hear anything bad about him. Like, he was quiet. He didn't really, you know, I don't think he really reveled in his fame all that much. I think he was a real person. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't really want to do Dragon Ball Z after it was done and only came back in, like, 2013 in a limited capacity where he could just be like, hey, look, I'll call some shots for you, but that's about it. Which I think worked out really well. I think his influence was really felt throughout Super. But like, man, I like just seeing all the different people who he influenced. I mean, fucking, you know, the authors of One Piece and Naruto. I saw a story that he you know, he got Tight Kubo. Is that how you say it? It's not Tite, is it? I think I don't know. I've always said it Tight Kubo. That's kind of a weird thing to say though. But like, you know, the author of Bleach, like he sent a letter to the author of Bleach saying, hey, look, you should try submitting Bleach to Shonen Jump again. I think you should make some tweaks and you should do it. You have a really, like, that's just so cool. Toriyama always seemed like a class act who raised up other artists. And I think probably even more amazing was the millions of other artists that he inspired who didn't necessarily go on to write, you know, these massive franchises. How many people got their start drawing Dragon Ball Z fan art? It was me. I got my start drawing Dragon Ball Z fan art. There's my OC. There's my first OC. Look at him. He's a fucking masterpiece. No, this book is like filled with sketches of the same character over and over again in varying forms and in various arm positions, that some of which make more sense than others. Just an incredible number of things. You know, a Dragon Ball Z, that art was like really my first time drawing humans. And what Dragon Ball Z gave me was a style to channel that through. It was like a way to make things look super badass, but not having to be fucking chiaroscuro or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just Akira Toriyama's art style is so, like, pitch perfect, right? It's, like, iconic. The cool thing about it is that it's easy to learn and hard to master. The fucking hair of a Super Saiyan is, like, iconic anywhere, right? Like, it's very easy to just, like, you know, I don't have any blank things. Here, hang on. You know, the iconic hair of a Super Saiyan is just, you can just kind of do this pentagon thing, and as long as you go like this, you know, it's like this right here. I can show you that, and that's a Super Saiyan. Like, you know it, because it's such an iconic thing to fucking draw, because, like, it's just how the design is. Like, you know, you can do a much worse job than that. You can draw a dude with some really just like some thin isosceles triangles on his head, and people know what it is because that design is the definition of iconic, because you can draw it as an icon and still know what it is, right? Like, and it's something that kids like myself could grasp, because I could draw something that looked like it was vaguely from Dragon Ball Z without it perfectly matching Toriyama's style. And like, I got better over the years. Like, this was from, what, college age? Like, look, I got better. Look. There we go. I got better. Look at that. That looks legit. There's a picture of Goku in here, too. There it is. See, look. Nailed it. I was in college. I did some things with his hair, because I was trying to do a thing. But, like, no, so many people started drawing. I started drawing. I got into anime. You know, I subscribed to Shonen Jump, and I got into like Shaman King and Naruto, and I connected with a friend in late middle school over Naruto, and I Fully Cooley and just Gurren Lagann eventually, and which was like the pure distillation of that thing that Dragon Ball Z created, and it's just like, man, it's so. I mean, like, dude, I'm not even that good of an artist, right? Like, I'm not even that good. Let me show you something I figured out the other day. This is a stack of my sketches since like 2021-ish. This is like the art that I have done. Like, I have created art. I've put it out there. It's made some people happy, mostly me. And like, that kind of started with Toriyama. Like, if you trace the cord back far enough, that kind of started with Akira Toriyama. Because I wanted to draw Dragon Ball Z. Me and my friend Jordan had our OCs, and we wanted to outdo each other. We constantly had to make our OC stronger than one another. And we did that by trying to draw cooler pictures of them, you know, than the other kid. And, that's kind of how I got started drawing people. And then there was like a time in middle school where this kid came in and he like did a really good anime drawing. I was like, well, I'm not going to take that fucking line down. I was like, I'm going to draw better. Like, you know, it's, you know, I don't know. It feels like a bit of a stretch, but like without Toriyama's art being so iconic, I don't know that I would have gotten into it as a kid. I wasn't trying to draw, you know, you won't see me trying to draw Darth Vader as a kid. I'm sure I did a couple times, but I didn't do it often because people were hard to draw accurately. And somewhere in my head, I was developing a level of self-consciousness that told me that that was the case. But like with Dragon Ball Z, it felt like I could get close enough that it was worth trying. And that's what I did. And I filled up so many fucking notebooks with Dragon Ball Z sketches as a kid. And look, I'm only one person. I'm still pretty bad at art. There are so many other artists that are just fucking amazing who got their start the same way that I did. That is not a story that is exclusive to me, that people just started drawing Dragon Ball Z shit because it was cool. I'm pretty sure that's how the author of Bleach did it. Like, he just wanted to draw cool shit, and Dragon Ball Z was the cool shit. Like, just a staggering number of artists and storytellers, people who write stories, like, got their start thinking about Vegeta. How cool it was that Vegeta was such a prick and, like, softened up over time. You know, or Piccolo. You know? People writing a character like Gohan, right? Nobody wrote a character like Gohan. I loved Gohan. But, like, you know, a character who sort of defied the genre trope didn't become like his father and became a nerd, and that should be equally awesome, but a lot of people don't think it is, but it is. Like, Gohan is amazing because he broke the cycle of violence, and it's just like, Gohan was a character, and in some ways still is a character that was, like, way ahead of his time, you know, because he broke the shonen cycle, right? Like, he didn't follow in his father's footsteps necessarily, or he fought for different reasons. We're not going to talk about Gohan Beast. But, like, yeah, it's just to see that Toriyama inspired millions of artists, including those that went on to make massive franchises that inspired millions more people. That's just insane. That's why I think Toriyama is one of the greatest artists and authors of our time. One of the most influential. I mean, just brought this entire massive genre to the world with this one solid series that had just the right ingredients to get everybody hooked, right? And there's something to that. I think there are reasons why Dragon Ball Z is on top. Like I said, there's just something about it. It's solid character archetypes that are so simple but so strong, so easy to follow that your kid can understand, hey, Vegeta has changed. I thought about that. Like, think about the cheapness of... we joke about how death is cheap in Dragon Ball Z, but it actually proves a point, right? Like, when Vegeta sacrifices himself in the Buu saga, it doesn't matter because he dies. That's not why that is important. It's important because he does it for selfless reasons. The way Vegeta finally dies, the way he finally goes out, minus against Frieza, the way he finally goes out is thinking of the safety of other people first. In the culmination of his arc, starting out as someone who was ready to murder literally everyone on the planet that he is now saving. You care far more about what it means for his character. And I think a lot of modern, better written, more complex series struggle with that. And I think that that's awesome. And I think that it's great that Dragon Ball Z was such a good starting point for so many people in terms of art and storytelling. And, of course, we've really just talked about Dragon Ball Z here today, but how many people were inspired by Dragon Quest as an early RPG? You know? How many people were inspired by Chrono Trigger? You know, I think a lot of those were aided by Toriyama's design as well, because he was just, you know, he was just so good at it, man. You know, it's like his designs are still really great for what they are. I think so many, you know, other designs are really complex and a thing, but Toriyama could really give you a lot about a character, you know, or sell a bunch of action figures, however you want to look about it, just through their design alone. You know, it's just impossible to talk about everything. You know what I mean? It's impossible. Look, I'm you know, kind of thankful that I got to live in the age when Toriyama did, right? I never met him, obviously. I never got a letter from him, or anything like that. But, like, that was the first name in manga and anime that I knew. It was the first Japanese name I ever really knew. Akira Toriyama. That's the one. That's the dude, you know? And, you know, I think he has gone too soon. I think what softens the blow is that he wasn't like, it wasn't like he was in his prime. It wasn't like Kentaro Miura where he was like, he had finally found a place where he could work on his magnum opus, right? It's not like, Dragon Ball Z was ongoing. Dragon Ball Z as Toriyama's baby ended in like 1991 or something, or 93. I think that's when the anime ended. And he was only involved in a advisory and sometimes design capacity on Super and future projects like that. So I think it softens the blow a bit that he had already sort of named his successors creatively, and had only been, I don't know about minimally, but he had only been involved so far in those projects. So I feel like, Dragon Ball is going to carry on without him. I think Dragon Ball, for better or for worse, is going to live forever. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the same without Toriyama, but it will live on forever. It'll probably still be going when I'm gone, and that's just where it is. Just the influence of Toriyama is incredible, and I do think that I still think he's gone too soon. Again, I don't think he was doing as much in his later years, but I still think he's gone way too soon. 68 is it's too young, it's way too young. And I think he still had a lot of cool little story things to give us. I feel like he was a little bit Miyamoto-esque in his later years, where some of his design and story choices were like, wait, really? Like, but there's still a certain charm to his character work, and those choices that he makes, that is undeniably what made him successful and still gave him that spark of joy in creating. Because I think for a long time he didn't really, he almost detested the success of Dragon Ball because it was just too much, and the demand for more was too much. He was done with it creatively. So I think that he came back in a role where he was far more comfortable is a heartwarming story, and I think that that's great. And I'm happy for any creator that's able to create in the capacity that they would like to do so. I think that's how it should happen, and whether or not you think Super is of comparable quality to the OG series, it's still that. It still has that in it somewhere, I guess. But I think it's still a shame, that he's, that he's gone. And, I think we still have some of his magic left. I think that the people working on, say, Dragon Ball Daima are now going to work their absolute fucking hardest. I think it's going to be, in the end, a very passionate piece of work and a very passionate tribute to the man who started it all. Going back to its roots with Goku and the gang as kids, I don't know if there's going to be a more fitting send-off than Dragon Ball Daima. The sort of games and stuff in the works, I think those people, the developers on those, now have a new reason to make those the best things ever. And I think in the next, year or so, we are going to see some of the best Dragon Ball that we've seen, made by a group of people who were so heavily inspired by the work of Akira Toriyama. I'm just a small person on the internet. I'm not even really like a dedicated artist, or whatever. I'm not a super great artist, but, art has been an important part of my life, especially in the past couple of years, that I have enjoyed making and I have connected with people over, and that has made me feel better as a person to a degree. In some ways worse as a person, but better for the most part. And to think that all of that really started with me trying to draw, something in the vein of Akira Toriyama. I have to be thankful to the man, and I have to be thankful to him for introducing me to so many great stories that have brought enjoyment and have enhanced my life, and just like, what an amazing artist and what an amazing person, I really feel like we lost one of the great ones. One of the big names in entertainment. Our parents have no idea. My parents had no idea who I was talking about or why it mattered, because Dragon Ball Z was just a fad like everything else. But I think it was more than just a fad. I think Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon are the two things to come out of the late 90s that are going to withstand the test of time and just sort of be with us forever and go down as like the influential works of, of our generation. So yeah, that's most of what I have to say about Akira Toriyama right now. Feel free to, if you have a story yourself, to share it in the comments, or make your own vlog about the influence you felt or what you feel or whatever. But if you've listened this far, thanks for listening, and go out and draw something, or write a story, or just, express yourself. Have a great day.